Chapter 5, Section 4. Our objective, learn to solve an equation using a proportion. And our essential question, what is a ratio? Our new vocab term, or fairly new, is cross product. You may have used this in the past. Here's what a cross product looks like. Cross products in proportions are equal. If the ratios are not in proportion, the cross products are not equal. So you can see the examples we have here on the left side. If we multiply the diagonals, the cross products, 6 times 12 is 72, 8 times 9 is 72. Those are equal. That means that those two fractions or ratios are in a proportion. Same thing, 5 times 6 is 30, 15 times 2 is 30. They are equal. That means that 5 over 2 and 15 over 6 are a proportion. In the event where we multiply the diagonals and do not get equal numbers, for example, 1 times 7 is 7, 2 times 6 is 12, they would not be a proportion. And 5 times 5 is 25, 12 times 2 is 24, they are also not in proportion. So to check if something is in proportion, take the two ratios, multiply the diagonals, and see if they're the same. Tell whether the ratios are proportional. We just have to multiply the two diagonals. So we find the cross products. 6 times 10 is 60, 15 times 4 is 60. They come out to be the same, so 60 equals 60, which means that these two ratios are proportional. Proportional just tells us that those two would simplify to the same fraction if we were to simplify all the way down. Let's check 5/10 and 2/5. Well, before you even multiply these with cross products, just think about it. 5 over 10, 2 over 4, those to me both look like they are equivalent to 1/2. Cross products will verify that. 5 times 4 is 20, 10 times 2 is 20. Those are the same values, so the ratios are proportional. Notice this is not a yes or no answer. We are writing these out as saying the ratios are proportional, or we would say the ratios are not proportional. Write the proportion 3 different ways. When it's up to you to write a proportion, you have options. This is like an analogy. So if we write it the way that we see it, 5 is to 10 as 2 is to 4. That's one way. I could flip these around. I could put the 10 first and the 5 in the denominator. And if I do that, I have to do the same with this one. 4 over 2. Okay, there's another way I could do this. I could match up the 5 and the 2 because those are both the first numbers written. And then across from the 5 I would put the 10, and across from the 2 I'd put the 4. To go the extra mile, I could take this and I could flip that around. 2 over 5, 4 over 10. Look at that, I did 4 ways. In every single one of these, let's just take a look at what happens when we cross multiply. 5 times 4, 5 times 4, 5 times 4, 5 times 4. If I want to change and go the other direction, 10 times 2, 10 times 2, 2 times 10, 2 times 10, all the same. So when it comes to writing problems yourself, you're not always going to have it look exactly the same as everyone else, but you should come up with the same answer if you've set it up proportionally. The ratio of girls to boys in a soccer league is 5 to 4. If there are 52 boys in the league, how many girls are there? Think about how this could be written out. 5 to 4. One of the ways we said you could write ratios is with a colon. We could also write that as a fraction. So we've written that in ratio form like a fraction. Now, the ratio of girls to boys means the first number represents the girls, the second number represents the boys. So if there are 52 boys, the 5 represents girls, the 4 represents boys because of the order it's written in, then boys has to be in the same position as it was in the first ratio. So 52 would have to go in the denominator. If we don't get them in the proper spot, then we're not going to be able to solve this. So we're looking for the number of girls. Okay, well we have cross products. So we would multiply 5 times 52, and that equals 4 times G. So we need to figure out what 5 times 52 is. So you could break that apart into 5 times 50 and 5 times 2, and then add those together, and we get 260 equals 4G. All that solving equations we spend time on is going to help us here to get G by itself, divide by 4. So G equals 65. So if we wanted to check and see how we did, we're saying 65 girls and 52 boys is a proportion with 5/4. We could cross multiply. Well, we already know 5 times 52 is 260, and 4 times 65, if we check that with a calculator, 260. So we got the correct number of girls. Nemo has to make 160 muffins for the bake sale. He takes 21 minutes to make 24 muffins. If he continues at that same rate, how many more minutes until he has completed the job? We need to use a variable, first of all, to represent the number of minutes it takes to complete the job, which would be M. Set up a proportion. So 21 minutes over 24 muffins would compare with M minutes over 160 muffins. Cross multiply. 21 times 160 equals 24M. Divide both sides by 24 after we've multiplied. So we get M equals 140. The intelligent people that we are, we go back and reread the question. How many more minutes until he has completed the job? Nemo has already started. So Nemo has worked for 21 minutes, so we have to subtract 21 from 140, and it will be 119 more minutes before Nemo's done with the job. A banana slug travels 4.5 inches in 120 minutes. At this rate of speed, how long would it take the slug to travel 12 inches? At a constant rate of speed, ratios of distance to time are equivalent. So let's set up our proportion. This is one way to do it. You could have time 1 over time 2, distance 1 over distance 2. You could flip them around, but you need to make sure that whatever you put in the first ratio, the second ratio is in the same setup. So since we're doing distance over time in the first ratio, we do distance over time in the second. So plug the numbers in, and let's pick a variable to represent the time, and we're going to use S this time for speed, or for slug, whatever you want it to be. So 4.5 inches is the distance over 120, that should say minutes. We'll get an M in there. And then we're looking at 12 inches over S number of minutes. So we'll cross multiply, 120 times 12 and 4.5 times S. Moving on to the next page to get a little more space. We simplify that down to 4.5S equals 1,440. We know we should divide both sides by 4.5. So we get S equals 320. So the slug will travel 12 inches in 320 minutes, or if we convert that to hours, 5 hours and 20 minutes. That's it. Make sure your notes are filled out completely. Make sure you understand what a cross product is and how to check proportions. On the left-hand side, come up with some questions that could be answered from the material in your notes. Review your notes, highlight, underline, chunk, and complete the summary before class.